Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, July 3rd, the day before 4th of July. And let me tell you what, it is sinking hot here in Arizona. Um, we're going to be up like 114, 115 in the unforeseeable future. No rain. The monsoon storms have kind of moved out. Actually, I never got any here at my house, which was very, very disappointing. But anyway, today I have a very special guest. I have a fellow angel mom, Wendy Cocoran from Tennessee, and her son Pierce was killed a few years after my son Brandon. And I'm going to bring Wendy on so that she can share our story and let's talk about, um, the state of where our country is right now. Wendy, welcome. It's so good to see you.
Good to see you, Mary Ann. Yes. Yeah, it's scary. I mean, you just see more and more people affected by it every day. And it's sad. That's what we talk about it so we can hope to not have others join our group. Yeah.
But we thought, when we first started this movement with President Trump in 2015 when he was running, we thought, okay, this is gonna wake America up, and people are gonna go, oh my gosh, we've got to fight. But in reality, it was almost like they would listen to us if we were on the news or whatever and say, oh, that poor lady lost her son. What's for dinner? It was that the American people have a very short attention span. And so our good intentions really didn't work out the way that we wanted them to. And we've witnessed so many more mothers like us, Wendy, who have gone through this heartbreak and this grief and this unbelievable pain that never goes away from losing a child the way we did.
Exactly. And even while we're talking today, somebody else is going through it probably. I mean, because of what's happened since this administration went into office. They want to proudly say that in the first 100 days they erased everything that President Trump's administration did, which put all Americans in danger, really. I mean, it's sad that they think that that was a big accomplishment. I
I
mean,
know.
mhm.
All the hard work, even in his 4 years, all the lawsuits that were filed against him, and all the pushback that he got, the fact that he was able to get done what he did was really kind of amazing to me. And I was in awe because, I know the UCLA before he even got into office, before he was even inaugurated. They already had like 60 lawsuits they were planning to file against him because of what he was campaigning on. And it just goes to show you that the world elites, the one world order, the people who were so mad that Hillary lost and the plans were derailed, the lengths that they would go to throw our country in utter chaos. Which once the Democrats got back into power, um, we've witnessed what their plan was. So at least President Trump was able to hold it off for 4 years, from 2016 to 2020. But and hopefully he'll get back in there and just stab the beast in the heart, man. We got to get rid of this one world order. Whoever these evil people are behind the scenes who are doing this.
Right.
I
I
want
agree.
you I want you to tell Pierce's story, Wendy. What happened, when it happened, so that people understand, there's grieving mothers like you.
Well, just a few days after Christmas, December the 29th of 2018, we got the phone call or the visit at our door that nobody wants. Pierce was driving. It was about 6:30 p.m. The weather was clear. He and his girlfriend were making a trip to Walmart, like we all do, almost daily. And a pickup truck crossed the double yellow line and hit him head on. And we would find out later that the man behind the wheel of the car was behind the wheel of the truck was an illegal immigrant. And there. I mean, it opened our eyes, I guess. I think we were watching and listening, and we definitely didn't agree with anything that's done illegally. I mean, that's just the word. It's illegal to come into this country without documentation, and I guess we just were naive and thought that our government would not allow that or would not allow those to be here. I mean, he was here apparently 14 years. His name was Franco. Um, Franco Eduardo Camberini, and he was 44 years old. And we would find out he'd been here for at least 14 years. He had no license, no insurance. He, in fact, tried to leave the scene. All the witnesses on the scene said he kept trying to start the pickup truck. So he would have fled had he been able to. And in that vehicle were three teenagers. One of them, his son. They were about 18 or 19 years old. And I can't help but think of what an example he set for them. That he would leave. He would not render aid and go, I could at least give him that if he did try to help, that he, I would think he's a good human. But, I just, Pierce didn't really, I guess, have a chance that night. And Jade survived, his girlfriend, and we are thankful for that. But it scarred her forever. I mean, and the people on the scene. And it did open some eyes here locally, I think, that, I think, sadly it took, because my husband was known in the community, for people to.
We lost her. Let's see if she can get back on. I'm going to tell her to reconnect. Having some issues with this program lately. Let me see. I just sent her a text to have her reconnect with the link, so hopefully we will get her back on here. She's going to reconnect. So I remember the first time that I met. There you go. There you go.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
So because my husband was known in the community as a firefighter and spokesman for the fire department, I think people, it has opened some eyes. And, you want to turn your tragedy into somebody else's, educate people. That's about all we can do as moms, is just speak what we know to be true and hope that people wake up to it. And I do think even some of our Democratic friends, this is a topic that they can agree with, that there's a problem. But whether they will vote the right way, that's a whole another issue. So
was the illegal drunk in Pierce's case?
We do not know, because there was no toxicology. We did not find that out till several days later, that there was no toxicology, because the state of Tennessee doesn't require it. We thought that was a given. Had we ever been involved in an accident, we assumed that if there was a fatality, that we would be subject to being tested, and perfectly understandable. But we're told that is not the case. And the officer on the scene did not smell any alcohol. He assured us that he did not smell anything, but our whole thing was, there's other drugs. There's not, you don't always know. So, we don't know that,
It's funny, the things that you find out in the midst of a tragedy like this. Is that something that you and your husband have fought to change in Tennessee, or is there a way that you could do that to where it would happen? Because, you may not smell alcohol, and a lot of these people drink beer and have beer cans, but, if you drink vodka, you don't have a smell on you.
Right. Right.
And my son's killer was 3 times a legal limit drunk and high on meth. So how do you know that the killer of Pierce wasn't high on some other drug, that was making him impaired?
Drug, that he was taking, that he was not prescribed. We have talked to the attorney general shortly after that happened, and because we just couldn't get a whole lot of support. People are, I don't know, I have a real problem with the whole country as far as driving. We just don't take it seriously. We
I
don't
know.
take punishment seriously. I mean, when you look on the arrests, and I watch it all the time, and you'll see fourth offense, and I'm like, why is this person behind the wheel? I mean, it's very frustrating because, um, but it seems to be across the board. I don't know if people are so worried about themselves that they know that they perhaps, or somebody in their family, and they don't like pushing that. I don't know. I don't really understand that, because we have all kinds of different transportation now, especially with Uber. There's no
Yeah,
excuse for it, period. so
I
so now
agree.
we allow a whole new demographic of people that aren't supposed to be here anyway. I mean, we don't really hold them accountable either. So yeah,
For anything.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
And they kind of come from countries where, slamming back some beers at your buddy's house or your brother's house and getting in the car and driving home is just their way of life. And
Absolutely. And you're not, not to stereotype anybody, but it is culturally, I mean, look at the Americans that love to go to Mexico so they can protect. You know what I mean? It's just very, it's a culture, and they've lived it their whole lives, so they come here. They don't do anything any differently, and we give them a license. We give them a car. We basically help them get behind the wheel of a car. I mean, we
yeah.
make it very easy for them.
Well,
And
and there was just recently, I think he was a young man from Honduras, the one who killed the cops,
mm,
or shot the cop in New York. And he was saying, that's my culture. And,
exactly.
and this is what the American people don't understand. The one world order people understand this 100%, because when you bring different cultures together, and there is no assimilation period, and they don't understand the laws, and they can't read the traffic signs, or they don't know that it's against the law to do this or that or this or that, they come here and bring their world into the United States, and it causes complete chaos.
Oh, absolutely. And another issue I would bring up that, of course, didn't affect us, but I see it all the time, and we know because we've heard the young women affected by it. And the male population coming across the border doesn't see anything wrong with a 12-year-old girl, and they have
Yeah.
no respect for women. A lot of, it's just like you said, culturally. And I think, until, if I read this correctly, until 2018, the age in Mexico was 12 years old, was the age of consent, and only recently changed. So do you think that someone's going to come here across the border? They've already broken the law. You think that matters to them? I mean, we put our young women in a terrible, dangerous situation. And if people don't wake up to the young lady at Georgia, Lake and Riley, and if that doesn't, I mean, there's so many things coming across the border, so many issues: the drinking and driving, the violence against women. I mean, the drugs. I mean, what more do we need? I mean, I don't really understand.
And then you got a snake like Mayorkas, who himself, he's a Cuban immigrant. I mean,
Mhm.
how stupid are we to put a Cuban immigrant in charge of our Department of Homeland Security? I still can't even believe it. I remember, Wendy, watching the Senate hearings, to get him appointed into the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security. And I was just screaming at the TV because, I knew his backstory. He had been in law enforcement, but he was the Deputy Secretary of Department of Homeland Security under Obama. And then he went over to USCIS. And then he's Secretary of Department of Homeland Security under Biden. And all of the things that he did, he was getting knowledge of what each department did in order to be able to come into the position of secretary and do the mayhem that he had created for this country. USCIS, and of course under Biden, under Mayorkas and Biden, they took away the Angel Families Hotline. That President Trump and Tom Homan had worked so hard for us families of the victims to be able to make a phone call and say, what's happened to my son's killer? Where is he right now in the justice system? What prison is he in? When he gets released, is he going to be picked up and deported? We had finally the answers that we had been waiting for and needing and wanting as victims' families. Mayorkas took it away and made it a hotline for illegals. And so the illegals call in, even the ones who pay to be smuggled, which is the majority of all of them. And they call in and say, I'm a victim of human trafficking. And then they're given a phone number to USCIS, and they call over there. And then USCIS says, well, let's open a file on you. And in the meantime, we're going to give you a work permit so you can work in the United States. This is what they did, Wendy. And I spent 2 days making phone calls and got to the top dude at USCIS and confirmed all of this was happening. And he actually had worked with the Trump administration. So Mayorkas is a snake. I mean, he has just figured out the whole system, and he knew exactly what he was going to do. I mean, he was just down in Panama. I don't know if you saw that. He was down in Panama. I'm going to share the screen so that you can see it. Signing this agreement with the Panama government, because they're saying they signed a memorandum of understanding on Monday on assistance and cooperation in immigration matters with the central objection of closing the passage of illegal immigrants through the Darien Gap. And that was an issue that the president of Panama, Jose Raul Molino, announced will be a priority in his administration in the face of the serious humanitarian crisis in the area. So you've got Mayorkas there, front and center. And I don't believe anything that I read in the newspaper anymore, because he's not about stopping any of this.
No. And I mean, to me, it's treasonous what's going on. I mean, you took away a program for American citizens affected by crime, and you handed it over to the criminals, and you're helping them. Not all of them are criminals, but I'm saying it is helping criminals. I mean, and we're paying for it. We pay for it. I mean, if anybody said that to us, we would have said that's impossible. That's not going to happen. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I would love to know, of course, getting somebody to investigate him, what he's done in this administration. Unless we can get Trump in office, maybe that'll happen, and see where
you had Congress impeach him.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the Democrats in the Senate, they won't hear of this to bring that man forward and face his crimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot of people that should be held accountable for the crimes that are being perpetrated against American citizens. I mean, it's not that we're not humanitarian to people, but we are not helping the majority of the people that need help aren't getting it, because we're letting in people that shouldn't even be considered
freeloaders. Yeah.
And they want to talk about women and children, and I'm thinking the majority of the people I see coming in are young males. Sorry, but that's the truth. And I don't see a whole lot of I'm surprised that these women's rights and women that aren't I don't hear a word about what's going on with the crime. Nothing. Just like I don't hear anything about Mothers Against Drunk Driving on any of they don't touch it, and that's disappointing.
They don't want to cross over this angel moms, angel families. They don't want us using the word illegal killed my son, and then you've got a percentage of Americans. And I was out door knocking the other day, and I came across a woman who said, your son could have been killed by an American or by a Canadian visiting the country. Yeah, you're absolutely right, but he wasn't.
No.
The dude was here illegally.
Yeah, let's stick to the facts, since they want, I mean, we're talking about facts. I know we had someone tell us they were protesting, and they said to my husband, well, the government should pay for your son's funeral. And I said, who do you think? I mean, we are paying. We paid for our son's funeral, but we are all paying for this. Do you not understand? You're paying for the crimes that they're committing. They're not suffering any consequences. They don't get it. They think the government and the money that funds these things is coming from some, I don't know what they think it's coming from. It's coming out of our pockets. I
Well,
mean,
the American taxpayer is being forced
mm-hmm.
we're being extorted by the federal government right now because our tax money is being used to support illegal alien, living in a hotel, having room service, giving free food, and then committing crimes on top of it and killing Americans. But where has the federal government ever been, Wendy, to step up and help angel families, even provide funeral costs for us because of the unexpected death of a child? It's something that the majority of angel families never expected to happen.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And I mean, and until I always say this, somebody said, well, when is anything going to, what's going to happen? And I said, until it happens to somebody really important, it's not going to matter. And I often wonder if it happened, I was thinking about Nancy Pelosi's husband the other day and what happened to him. And, that guy should be punished. But I mean, I think he got 30 years. And I'm like, and we get nothing. We get no, I mean, and he didn't kill her husband. I mean, and I'm like, we just aren't important enough. I mean,
well, and it was speculated that he was actually invited there by the husband, and that's something
yeah, I heard that too.
really
So,
was going on. But
yeah,
I put that out on our Angel Families Facebook page that it's like this guy gets 30 years because it's Nancy Pelosi and her husband for
absolutely.
breaking into a house. But we've got American citizens that are killed by illegals. We're lucky if that illegal gets 2 years in prison because the majority of the time they deport them before a trial happens, and then we don't even know what happened to them. What happened to the guy who killed your son?
He got deported. He caused our son's death in December. He was deported in April. So our grand jury was still out, but they did come back. But he was already, out of the country or on his way. And the grand jury came back that he should be charged and tried for criminally negligent homicide. So if he gets caught back here, then if the law enforcement agency that picks him up does what they're supposed to do and looks in the database, his name is there, so he should be turned back over to Knox County. But I mean, do I have a lot of faith in that? No, not really. I mean, and the defense attorney, his public defender here, he did a newspaper article shortly after, after one of the hearings, and he said, he was a police officer in Mexico. He was in the military. And I said, my only problem with that is if he was all those things in Mexico, he did not help my son. If I don't know of a police officer or a military person that would render aid.
Right.
I mean, so that to me just didn't fly. I mean, but trying to make him look at like he's innocent,
If that's what you were in Mexico, then why'd you come here?
Exactly. Yeah. And why didn't you do it the right way? If you are military or police here, for the most part, they're law abiding, the ones I know, and there's no gray area. You do the right thing. And so, I
was really shocked when I had heard, because there was another case with an angel family that, the illegal was deported before there was a trial. And it's like, I honestly feel in my gut that these people, yes, they need to be out of our country, but they need to face the consequences of what they did here in the United States. And with that guy who killed Pierce having a teenage son here, darn well he's back here. Because that teenage son wasn't going to go to Mexico and go live with his dad.
Absolutely.
And they just come under a new name, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And honestly, with our government's help,
yes.
I know that the government isn't aiding and abetting him to come. I mean, they are. So I do feel sure that he's probably back here because there's nothing to stop him. I mean, even this charge here hanging over his head, he's not probably too worried about it. He made it 14 years, and we don't know in that 14 years if he ever hit someone and run. I mean, we don't know. So, I just would hope. I mean, if he's all those things his public defender tried to say, then he would not come back. He would say, this is my punishment. I mean, if he hated to go back so much, I thought, well, maybe this is a punishment. At least we're getting that.
Right.
But once Biden went into office, I thought he's probably back here. He saw who got elected, and he was welcomed back in with open arms. I mean, it's
Exactly.
very disheartening.
And he may not be in Tennessee. He could be somewhere else because that's how Brant, my son's killer, was up in Colorado, committed crimes up there, and came to Arizona then. And the lenient judge up in liberal Colorado basically just gave him a slap on the wrist. And he had assaulted a police officer, committed forgery, done some other crimes, and he should have been deported at that time. But
Right.
he wasn't. The liberal judge up in Colorado says, you behave yourself now, you'll have a good life. And he ended up here in Arizona killing my son.
I just think any judge that would do that, I think you need to let them come live with you. You need to take full responsibility for him. You are his guardian now, and you suffer the consequences of whatever he does. I mean, I
Yeah.
just don't understand that mentality of someone who is supposed to be upholding the law. I mean, it just
Protecting the citizens. And they
exactly.
interpret the law and takes, circumstances into consideration. It's just like that one guy in New York who raped a girl and he was released on $500 bail. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's like in North Carolina. I don't know if you've ever gone to the website, Wendy. It's NC for North Carolina, ncfire.info. And that site is completely dedicated to the sexual crimes, assaults, and rapes that illegals commit against children in North Carolina. And it's mind-boggling when you go on that site. And I mean, it doesn't show anything. It just has statistics. But there could be 67 illegals arrested in 1 month and charged with 243 crimes. So that they're committing multiple crimes. Now, in 2018, in the middle of Trump's presidency, there was I know two for sure, maybe three sheriffs in North Carolina who were elected into office. And they immediately made their counties sanctuary counties because the Republican governor before that had claimed that North Carolina was not going to ever be a sanctuary state. So it's state law. But these sheriffs came in and made 2 or 3 counties sanctuary counties and against state law. And that is where all these crimes against children are being perpetrated by these illegal men. And they know they could go to North Carolina and get away with it. Now they'll be arrested for raping a 9 or 10-year-old little girl, and they will be back out into the community by the next morning. This is how disgusting and sickening that some of our law enforcement agents are, the sheriffs especially, the liberal ones.
Yes.
Because the Republican conservative sheriffs like Sheriff Lamb and Sheriff Daniels down in Cochise County here in Arizona, I'm sure you've got some great sheriffs there in Tennessee, but we've got some great sheriffs who really uphold the law and don't allow this sort of thing to happen. But I mean, I don't know. It's like I've told people there's like a maze that we're standing in front of, Wendy, with 500 entrances into it. And you got to figure out which one to go into to solve the problems. But in reality, you got to go into all 500 of them because there's that many problems in the country.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely infiltrated. And in every department, you have people working against, enforcing the law, and especially against people that shouldn't be here. We shouldn't even be having these discussions.
No.
An argument about it. I don't understand it. I mean, we're very fortunate in Knox County. We do have Sheriff Spangler. We have 287G in place, and so if they are in Knox County and they get arrested for committing a crime, he turns them over. I mean, that's how it works. And luckily in the state of Tennessee, they just passed where all law enforcement agencies have to work with the federal government in regard to illegal immigrants being arrested. They have to to turn them over, to notify the federal. And of course, it depends on who's in charge in the federal government whether anything really happens to them. But at least now it's statewide here. So I feel like, Tennessee, and we're a border state to North Carolina, maybe they won't be coming across, because if they become aware of it, they'll be worried that they won't be caught and released like they have been in so many places.
Word gets out to them pretty quickly what states to avoid.
Yeah.
So they know where they don't want to go if they're going to be committing crimes. But when we were all together and going to the White House and going to DC and going to the Sean Hannity show and different things that we did, the majority of us had our children killed in auto accidents. There was the one or two, like Laura Wilkerson, whose son was so brutally murdered, and a few others. But now what is really a gut punch to me is, like you were saying earlier, how many young girls are being raped and murdered. And this seems to be, I have a military wife who does research for me on a daily basis, Wendy, and I get anywhere from 20 on the low end to 100 or over articles that she sends to me on a daily basis that she does research on. And it's never in the mainstream media, but it's really an eye opener for me, because, if I'm getting 100 articles in crimes that have been committed in the last day or two across this country, we're in bigger trouble than we thought, because it's murders and it's rapes and it's big harm done to American citizens. So again, we will never know the depth of the crime these people are committing, because a lot of the law enforcement agencies across the country have come to an agreement to not report crime statistics, and especially to break them down to where they're crimes committed by illegals and crimes committed by American citizens. They will never do that. So we will never have the full grasp of the amount of crimes they are committing.
Yeah. So even though the numbers are bad now, that's not even a tip of the iceberg. I mean, right. There's more. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. It's sad that we aren't protecting all women and children. Even the women and children that came here to escape from the abuse and everything in Mexico. Isn't that what we're supposed to? Why are we helping them become victimized too? That's happening too. So it's not that we're totally against Hispanics or people. I mean, but we're not helping anybody by this chaos. I mean, it's just
it's illegal. It's illegal activity. Mm-hmm. And you or I wouldn't get on a bus and go down to Colombia and expect to stay there the rest of our lives because of the beautiful mountains and the stress-free life. And I could live down here for 1/10 of what it cost me to live in the United States. So I'm going to stay here. That just wouldn't happen, because we know that isn't the way to go about things. But when you have somebody like Mayorkas, or when you have people like George Soros, or when you have the United Nations who think that we need to open all borders and have everybody mixed in together. I had a conversation with Cayenne, Wendy, many years ago, and she likened it to the Bible, and she was saying, this is why God created different languages, so that people could have their culture and have their lives. And they live in a state, they live in a country within a country. They live on the African continent, but they're in Libya and they may speak a different language than they do in Kenya. It's like God did that on purpose, right, for tribes and cultures to be able to survive. And you cannot put, it's like I've seen that thing where you have red ants and black ants in a jar, and they coexist fine till you shake them up, and then they're chaotic and killing each other. That is what is happening when you try to mix cultures like this, and there's no basic understanding of laws and what's acceptable and the morals that are expected of you living in the United States.
Yeah, no expectation. Yeah, we just say, come on, and there's no, even in our son's cases, the driving law, do we even bother to say, now you're here, but you can't come here, and we don't even say that to them, and we just come and do whatever you want to do, basically. I mean, it's no regard for other, no expectation for them to try to assimilate and learn. And I mean, I don't understand, unless it is to put us in a situation to damage our country and damage the American life. There's no other.
It's the only logical reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's done intently, and you know, I often refer back to January 6th and what they've done to those people, and it's a real lesson to Americans who want to stand up and be bold and speak out about what's happening in our country. It's a good reminder. Well, don't forget what happened to the January 6th people. You want to end up in jail because you're standing up and speaking out against your government. But on the flip side, you can have all these kooks and these crazies, out on the streets, and now the pro-Palestinian people, and the damage and the hate and the assaults that they do on people, and nothing ever happens to them. This is what's so amazing to me.
No, they label it freedom of speech, the whole protesting thing. I tell people here all the time, like, we're part of a group, Angel Families, and there's thousands of people affected, but we're trying to do it in a way to educate. We don't go out here and protest and cause, it's just not, it doesn't do Brandon any justice. It doesn't do Pierce for us to behave in a way that makes us look like we're we want to bring about change. We want to do it in a way that's positive, and it's hard some days. I would love to go knock on a door and let somebody have a piece of mind, but I know that's not going to accomplish anything. So I don't understand this whole protection of that kind of behavior. I don't know. But
Well,
yeah,
and
they're
even
not
like,
protecting American citizens who are standing up, and doing the same thing, I guess. But yeah.
And even that time, Trump had a group of us there at the White House, and we all had, the big pictures of our children. And then, we asked him to sign the pictures, because he was the only person, elected official, who had ever taken any interest in bringing our stories forward. And really, what's the word I want to say? Acknowledging that our children's lives mattered, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what happens? We have the media attack us and him. Oh, you're using your pictures for a photo op and asking the president to sign the picture of your son. How disgusting is that? And coming after us. And all we were doing was having a private meeting with our president and doing a little press conference to let people know, look, this crime's getting out of control. You guys better wake up and pay attention. This is what not apprehending people at the border has done. And it's gotten 10 times worse. Wendy, from 9/11 until I think it was 2017, it was either 17 or 18. I don't know if you saw in the intro that picture of me at a table with Trump and with Tom Homan. They had called me there to talk about sanctuary policies. And I told Trump then, because I had been doing a lot of research, that there were more Americans killed by illegals in the United States since 9/11 than Americans that were killed in Vietnam. So I told him, it's war on our homeland. Illegals are killing American citizens right here. And it may not be as bad as 9/11, horrific, to where it was over 3,700 people killed on one day, but this is a slow trickle. And it's more than that every single year of Americans that are being killed in America. And he looked for it, and he's like, I've never heard that before. And of course the media, jumped all over it, because some of the American sheriffs who were keeping tabs of the statistics were saying, I have a new bridge in, and it's causing me problems talking. But they were saying, 25 Americans are killed a day by illegals. And of course the media went crazy, Representative King from Iowa. He was just lambasted because you don't know what you're talking about. So I took figures less than half of that in my statistical research. I said 12 Americans a day were killed by illegals, which, heck, is probably triple that right now, what's going on in the United States.
Yes.
But anyway, it's interesting when you start putting it into perspective like that. It was more Americans killed than were killed in the Vietnam War. I mean, that starts making you go, wait, what? Are you kidding me? So we can never stop fighting because we've got to keep this information forward. And it just broke my heart seeing your post yesterday or the day before about, it's 6.5 years. And isn't it funny how we just go month to month?
Mm-hmm.
And the littlest thing can bring up a memory. I mean, it's been 10 years in May for me with Brandon, but the littlest thing, the smell of the certain air freshener that he used in his house, and sometimes I'll just be driving along and a song will come on the radio and I'll just start crying because it reminds me of him. So our boys will never be forgotten in our hearts, but I'm hoping having this podcast and having Angel Mom speak out and stuff that we understand we're doing this to protect another mother from the heartache that we've experienced.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you really don't want anybody else to lose a child in any way, but especially something that could have been, that could be prevented. And our government's part of the problem. Is really hard. It's just heartbreaking. I mean, our sons deserve their story to be told and for us to be listened to. And like you said, President Trump was the first person to do that. So of course, we're going to support him and hope that he can get back in for 4 years and spare some other mothers from going through this. I hope and pray.
It's crazy. Wait a minute, Cocoran. I'm trying to see if I can pull up a picture real quick. I want to share this with everybody.
Yes. And I shared that post, when I read my words again, I was like, wow, it just, you try to go about your day to day, and you too have other children. You don't want them to lose their mom, to this. And so, but you still do what you can to keep telling their story. And
this is Pierce, just for all of you who've never seen him. It's not a very good picture that I pulled up, but I looked him up real quick on the internet because I didn't have one near me. But this is Wendy's precious son, Pierce. And, never forget this sweet face. He was so lucky to have you. And as I commented on your post, this sweet boy knew nothing but love from you, Wendy. Mm-hmm. And, we can only hope that no matter what happens to our children, that they'll never leave this world without knowing a mother's full love and devotion to them, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And he was in a happy time in his life, which is bittersweet too. But I am glad that he was in a good place, and that I think he was in love, and he was just, it's heartbreaking to think about it. But at the same time, I am glad that he had a smile on his face that day. I know, being with Jade, and so that I'm thankful for. We weren't, I know a lot of families, again, affected by the drug issues and stuff. So there's things that I am thankful that we weren't on that path, even though I don't like what happened. I am, I know there's a plan somewhere, and I just have to rely on that and cling to that, and know that you and I both will see them again. So that's
a glorious reunion for sure.
Absolutely.
I never realized before speaking to you today that Jade was actually in the car with him the day that happened.
Yeah, she was. And so she's our miracle in so many ways, because she was a preemie 1 pounder when she was born. So, it's just, and we're still in contact with her. We see her often and have a good relationship, and we want her to thrive and do well, and she is doing that. So that I'm thankful for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pierce would want that for
Of
sure.
course. Yeah.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, and I remember, because my mom passed away this past August, but I remember having conversations with her because she was very close with Brandon. Brandon was, a police officer. He would stop by her house, and my mom loved to play group solitaire, to where there were times up at the cabin where we had 10 of us playing solitaire, and everybody would put their aces in the middle, and everybody could play off of each other's aces. And so he would stop and play solitaire with her, have a cup of hot tea or something, if it was cold outside. So they were very close. But my mom said to me, because I was confused. I was like, how could God need my son? He was doing so much good in the community. Why? And my mom said, Marianne, and this was several years after he was killed, maybe because of the way the world looks at cops right now and how nasty the world has become. Maybe God wanted him to go and be with him because he had done his good work, and he didn't want him to become, an officer who was mad or resented his job or anything. Because she said, he was in the prime of just having done a huge project of helping all these homeless people out of a park and getting rid of the drug dealers and reclaiming the park for the community. And those people loved him.
Mm.
And every year he would do a neighborhood cleanup for them, and they'd bring those big city dumpsters in, park them on the streets. And then we'd have a Saturday where we all went and helped, and all the residents would bring, their stuff out to the curb, and we'd help them clean up the neighborhood. And so those people knew Brandon loved him, which I'll never understand. This teeny tiny little house that we went to one year, they had 16 mattresses stacked up outside that we had to throw in the dumpsters. And Brandon looked at me and he goes, Mom, how did they have 16 mattresses in that teeny tiny house? It was just like, it was funny because some of the stuff that people had out there, he's like, oh my gosh, you don't realize, the junk people keep around. But every year after it was over, and he would be patrolling the area, that people would come out and say, oh my gosh, we love you for doing this. We feel so good about our neighborhood, because nobody cared about that neighborhood. And you know what, Wendy, it was a lot of illegals who lived down in that neighborhood. And Brandon helped them and looked after their grandparents, because a lot of their children moved out of the house and lived in Phoenix or in Tempe, not in Mesa anymore. And he would check in on their parents and have their cell numbers and give them a call if their parents weren't doing well. So, he was at the prime of his life in his career, to where I really took heed to what my mom was saying and thought, maybe this is why God wanted him to go when he did.
Yeah, and he saw it, did good while he was here, and yeah, it's hard you will never understand this side of heaven. It just will never make sense. Why not us? Why
Yeah.
not us? We would trade places, but we don't get to choose, um, and it'll all make sense one day. But I don't like the day to day, but I keep holding on to that. So.
And I apologize, but what's your husband's name?
DJ.
DJ. I was going to say JJ, but
No,
right.
DJ.
How's he doing? Because I
He's
know
doing
that he had some health issues. He's doing
He
good.
did. He did. That's what I told him. I said, back in December, he tried to leave on me, and I said, you're not getting to Pierce first, so that ain't happening. So, but he's got a defibrillator and a pacemaker, and he's doing really well, doing great. So he's going to be around with us for a long time, hopefully. But he did, he saw heaven.
Did he?
And he saw his mom. So,
Wow.
he's been gone several years, and it hurt my feelings for a few days after that in the hospital. He was there about a week, and he didn't ever say he saw Pierce, and there was some memory issues and things, and so I was kind of worried that he didn't know, that he had forgotten, and I was going to have to be the bear that news to him again. But it did dawn on him a little bit later, and he said, I saw shadows beside her, but I did not see, he didn't see his dad, or he didn't see Pierce.
Wow.
And and we all, we know if he'd seen Pierce, he would have grabbed him, and
Yeah.
he would be in heaven right now. So it wasn't time for him yet. So that I'm thankful for, that he didn't. There'll be a day sometime that we will see him and we'll grab on and we won't come back. But it wasn't his time. So I'm glad we get to keep him around a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And your daughter, she's so she's such an awesome girl. The things that she does, and the vintage outfits, and the things she does.
Yeah.
I get a kick out of following her on Facebook because
Yeah, she's doing great. She's doing great.
she,
Yeah, I thought when Pierce, when this happened, that, she'd been married 5 or 6 years. I thought, well, she'd always kind of said she didn't want kids. And I thought, well, this might, kind of make her rethink it a little bit. But I think it kind of had the opposite effect. She really does not want to go through a loss. And so I think that's scary. So, that part is sad for me, because I think that it could, make her feel that way, that, I wouldn't trade any of it for them. I'm glad, that I have them, and that God gave 22 years of Pierce's life to me. But, that part's a little sad to watch her, she, it hurts. It's, left a scar on her heart that will never, never go away. So,
and it's not just the mamas that are affected, because my daughter spiraled into 2 years of drugs. And after Brandon was killed, because she was so upset, because her and Brandon were fighting at the time that he was killed. They weren't speaking to each other. They'd had a little rift, and it kind of blew up into something bigger. So it was about 3 or 4 days of them not talking to each other. And then he was killed, and she just regretted that. And spiraled into drug use for 2 years. So, I had to deal with that on top of Brandon, and, rip her kids away from her and force her to go to rehab. And thank goodness she's been 8 years clean, overcome that. But it affects us siblings in a way that you and I will never understand.
No. And just like that, siblings fight, sibling guilty of not speaking to somebody, and you say, oh, well, we shouldn't ever do that. But it happens. And as well as I do, Brandon knew that she loved him, and there's no, that the devil is in that. The devil tries to make us, have those thoughts and those feelings of, and I just, luckily my kids have, and us, we knew and were aware that he was there circling, and we fought back. So that's, I'm glad.
How's your other son doing?
Our son is getting married, and Connor, our middle son, is getting married in September. So we're gaining a daughter-in-law. So we have, but it will be a bittersweet day, because Pierce won't be there. So, I'm preparing for that for all of us. We don't want to take away from his day, but it's definitely, as you know, hard milestones. All those family things are hard. So
I know.
Yeah. But he'll be there. He just, he just
in spirit. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So
yes. So my podcast ends at 55 minutes, and we're just about there. But Wendy, thank you so much for taking the time to come on here. I've missed you. I've been wanting to reach out to you, and I'm going to slowly get through all the list of angel moms and get them all on here, so that America can hear the different stories and understand this isn't a one-off. This isn't something that is just happening now. This has been happening for many years, for decades. And
let me tell Pierce's story. I appreciate it, Mary, and I appreciate it. Absolutely.
I love you guys, and please tell DJ and your family, everybody, I said hi. And my border collie knows when I'm getting ready to sign off on my show. There's certain words that trigger her. So she's gonna keep barking. But anyway, happy 4th of July. I love you, Wendy.
Thank you. I love you too. Bye-bye.